You're watching Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru. Higher standards.
If you're anything like me, you often wonder how things are made. And some of those things might be things that you never even really thought about, such as the case with oyster cages.
So I guess it's a good thing the folks from Perdue had an oyster cage making party at their corporate office in Salisbury.
Today we're doing a cage building event with the Oyster Recovery Partnership. It's a group that we've worked with for 14 years now. So we're excited to bring this event to our associates here at Perdue. Over the last 14 years, we've bagged about 10,000 bags of shells and built about 200 cages. So we're hoping to add to that total this afternoon. We're obviously, being part of the Chesapeake Bay region, we're concerned about the health of the Chesapeake Bay. This is a good way to help the oyster population, help with the filtering that goes on with oysters naturally, and just give back to our community.
Our normal job is collecting shells, but we're out here building oyster cages, and we use the recycled shells to put in the cages, get oyster larvae to attach to those shells, and then they're given to waterfront property owners to oyster garden, essentially. Oyster shells are essential for growing oysters in the Chesapeake Bay, both for restoration and from a commercial aspect. So every shell we can get, all the better. Those trucks over there, they go to restaurants all across Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, even DC, and some even Delaware. But also we get a lot from shucking houses, both from this area and even Virginia and beyond. Yeah, so the first thing is they gotta dry out. As you can imagine, it's pretty warm today. They're highly perishable, so you gotta let nature do the thing, decompose all the tissue, let them dry out. And then they actually introduce oyster larvae to those oyster shells in a tank, and that's at University of Maryland's Horn Point Oyster Hatchery. Those little larval oysters stick to the shells and create what's spat on shell. Spat's a baby oyster. And then those are planted back in the water, or in our case, they'll go in cages that we'll build today, and those will go to waterfront property owners and other organizations on the water to more of an educational program to help foster those young oysters. So one of the coolest things is every oyster that you eat, that's 2 half shells, up to 10 little spat baby oysters can grow per recycled half shell. So that's a 20-fold return from eating 1 oyster and recycling both shells.
I was raised on the shore, and just being around the water and having the access to water for sports and having fun outdoors and recreation, and then getting food from it growing up, that's always been something important to me, to keep our areas wild and beautiful, but it's also important throughout your life to, I think, participate in these things that affect you directly, whether you're eating the food or not, but oysters are a huge part of the ecosystem. So yeah, I just think it's super important that we get the chance to do this, and then actually participate in it and make an effect on our community and our waterways. Yeah.
The first thing is shell recycling. Oysterrecovery.org. We have a list of close to 300 restaurants and public drop sites. I think the county here has, at least 8. Just at transfer stations, you can leave any of your shells there. But yeah, dine at restaurants that you see have an oyster shell recycling logo. And if you dine at home, try to find some place to recycle those shells.
Despite the overall numbers of the oysters in the Chesapeake Bay being up as of June of this year, there are still some areas, especially along the eastern shore, that are seeing some dangerous overharvesting numbers.
So the efforts of the Shell Recycling Alliance is really important. Find out how you can help by going to oysterrecovery.org.
Outdoors Delmarva, presented by Gateway Subaru, returns right after these messages.